Most women think they know what men want. But what if I told you they don't? Because beneath the polished mask of masculinity, behind the steady eyes and measured words, lives a desire so primal, so forbidden, that he's been taught to disown it, not only from the world, but from himself. This isn't about sex. This isn't about status. It's about something far more terrifying: vulnerability, the sacred surrender, the unbearable craving to be seen. Not for his power, but for the storm that lives beneath it. You may think he wants to lead, that he seeks control, that his confidence means certainty. But dig deeper into his archetypal self, into the shadowed depths of his anima and ego, and you will find something trembling. Not weak, not broken, but buried. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And so it is with men and the desire they fear most. It is the longing to merge, not just with your body, but your being. A yearning for divine recognition, to be understood by the feminine not as a prize to be earned, but as a mirror for his soul. Yet to admit this, to want this, would crack the armor he spent a lifetime forging. So he hides it, disguises it, masks it behind casual smiles, emotional distance, or a hunger for dominance that whispers, "If I control you, I cannot be consumed by you." But you've seen it, haven't you? In fleeting moments when his eyes soften and he doesn't know you're watching. In the rare silence between words, where his bravado slips and something raw flickers through, that is the truth he fears. That is the desire no one taught him how to hold. Because from birth, boys are conditioned to conquer, to suppress emotion, to wear stoicism not as a path to virtue, but as a straitjacket. They are told that to need a woman is to be enslaved by her, that to reveal the chaos inside is to lose respect, that intimacy is dangerous unless they dominate it. So he becomes the master of restraint, exiling his yearning into shadow, choosing safety over surrender. And yet, the psyche cannot be silenced. What is repressed does not die, it distorts. So his desire twists into frustration. His craving for connection becomes hypersexuality or emotional unavailability. He flirts but never opens. He touches but never connects. He desires but cannot let go. The truth? He doesn't fear you. He fears what you awaken in him. The ancient, mythic part of himself that still remembers worshipping the goddess. Not with words, but with awe. The wild vulnerability of being brought to his knees not by weakness, but by reverence. But if the goddess sees too deeply, she might see the boy still hiding in the man, the child who once loved without shame, before life taught him it was dangerous. So he retreats, and you wonder why he pulls away right when it gets real. You ask yourself, did I do something wrong? No, you did something right. You touched his unconscious. You ignited the forbidden flame. And now he's fighting a war between who he's told he should be and what his soul secretly longs to become. This is not your fault. And yet it is your power. Because when a woman holds her ground in the presence of a man's buried hunger, when she does not flinch, does not chase, does not shrink, she becomes the catalyst for his transformation. Not by fixing him, not by mothering him, but by embodying the truth he's terrified to admit. That love is not weakness, that surrender is not submission, that the deepest masculine strength is forged not in isolation, but in communion with a woman who dares to see him whole. So if you've ever felt a man distance himself after closeness, know this: you touched his soul. You stirred the archetype he's been avoiding, and in that sacred dissonance, something inside him either breaks open or shuts down. But your worth does not lie in his readiness. You are not here to rescue him. You are not here to be the exception he finally chooses. You are here to choose yourself again and again, so that when he finally turns toward his shadow, when he finally dares to meet his desire with open eyes, he does not find you waiting, but rising. Because the woman who understands a man's forbidden desire does not weaponize it. She does not beg for it. She does not fear it. She simply holds her truth like a flame and watches who is brave enough to step into the fire. Most men walk through life shackled to a myth, the myth of the invulnerable male. stoic, rational, unyielding. But behind that facade lives a boy exiled from his own heart. A boy who once wept freely, who once reached out without shame, who once sought warmth not to conquer, but to be held. Over time, that boy was banished, by fathers who taught with silence, by peers who mocked softness, by a society that equated emotional honesty with weakness. And so, a man is forged not in wholeness, but in fracture. He becomes half of himself, armored in logic, divorced from feeling. In public, he is calm. In relationships, detached. And inside, a storm swirls, silent and unseen. Carl Jung wrote of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject, repress, and deny. For many men, that shadow is not rage. It is not lust. It is need. Deep, soul-aching need. The need to be touched beyond the physical. The need to cry without judgment. The need to be known, truly known, without losing respect. But how can he confess this, when the world has only respected him for what he hides? You felt it. When a man stares too long and says too little. When his touch lingers, but his words vanish. When he makes love to you like he's searching for something, but retreats when you offer it. It is the paradox that confuses so many women. Why does he pull away when I get closer? Because closeness threatens the illusion he's built. And that illusion of control, of invincibility, is the only armor he's ever had. Without it, he is naked in ways that terrify him. To be loved as he is, not for what he provides. To be held without earning it. To be safe without proving strength. These are not comforts to him. These are threats to the structure of his identity. You see, the masculine ego was built to protect, to strive, to endure. But the soul of a man craves more than resilience. It craves integration. It craves the individuation Jung spoke of, the sacred uniting of conscious and unconscious, of shadow and light, of masculine and feminine within. But to achieve this, a man must descend, not into chaos, but into honesty. This is the descent he resists, the one that begins the moment he meets a woman who sees through him, not around his mask, not beyond it, but into it, into the ache behind his ambition, into the loneliness behind his laughter, into the need behind his coldness. Such a woman is not ordinary. She cannot be manipulated because she sees his shadow too clearly. She cannot be possessed because she does not seek validation in his affection. She becomes a mirror, terrifying in her clarity. And this is where the battle begins. Because the man has a choice. He can project, blame her for awakening his unrest. Or he can awaken, step into the fire of transformation, and finally meet the part of himself he abandoned long ago. But make no mistake, this choice is rarely conscious. It is archetypal, mythic. It is the battle between the false king and the sacred warrior. Between the ego that clings to survival and the soul that longs to evolve. You must understand this. When a man withdraws after intimacy, he is not rejecting you. He is confronting himself. The more powerfully you hold your center, the more pressure he feels to either rise or run. And both are sacred. Because not every man is meant to walk beside the awakened woman. Some are only meant to be stirred by her, to feel, perhaps for the first time, the depth of what they've denied. And yet, if you make yourself small to keep him close, you betray your own journey. If you dim your light to soothe his fear, you become complicit in his stagnation. That is not love, that is self-abandonment. The woman aligned with her essence does not chase or persuade. She radiates, and in that radiance she becomes the test. Not a temptation, a threshold. A doorway between the life he knows and the self he's never dared to be. You must remember, he may never walk through. He may touch your soul and turn away. He may taste truth and retreat to illusion. And that too is sacred, because your task is not to heal him. Your task is to embody what healing looks like. There is a pain in this, a quiet grief, but in that grief lives wisdom. And in that wisdom, power. The power to know when to hold and when to let go. The man who hides his deepest desire is not your responsibility. But the woman who knows her worth becomes the one thing he cannot forget. Not because she waited, but because she walked forward when he did not. Somewhere deep within the psyche of a man lies an ancient memory, not of war, not of conquest, but of reverence. A time when the feminine was not something to be feared or possessed, but worshipped. Before the age of industrialized masculinity, before emotions became liabilities, there was a time when men gathered not to escape women, but to praise them. In those forgotten myths, the woman was a portal, priestess, a healer, and the man, the warrior, sought not to rule over her, but to be made whole through her. That memory remains. It is buried beneath layers of ego and armor, but it pulses in the deepest regions of his soul. A pulse he only hears when he meets a woman who remembers herself. Not the girl who seeks to be chosen, but the woman who has chosen herself. You see, the forbidden desire isn't weakness. It's surrender, not the surrender of self, but the surrender of ego. The desire to collapse into someone who sees through the charade. Who sees the man not for his performance, but for his presence. But ego does not surrender easily. It has been built brick by brick from a lifetime of proving, performing, and protecting. And so the man stands at the threshold, the doorway of deep, transformative intimacy, and he hesitates. Because on the other side of that door is annihilation. Not death of the body, but death of the persona. This is where the fear arises. This is why he ghosts you after you open your soul. Why he silences himself after bearing just enough to stir you. He isn't playing games. He's fleeing revelation. Because to be truly seen is to risk the loss of control. To let someone into the inner sanctum is to expose the chaos within, the self-loathing, the inadequacy, the shame. And what if you see it all and walk away? Better, he thinks, to leave first. And so, many women are left aching in the wake of a disappearing man, not knowing that their presence didn't repel him, pierced him. And for that very reason, he ran. But here's the truth few will tell you. It is not your job to convince a man to face himself. You are the mirror, not the map. You are the flame, not the fuel. If he cannot stand in your fire, he is not ready to rise from his own ashes. Still, there is pain in being the mirror. There is pain in being the flame. Because love, for the awakened woman, is not just affection. It is alchemy. And alchemy burns. Jung spoke often of the anima, the inner feminine within every man. She is emotional, intuitive, chaotic, mysterious. If he does not integrate her, he projects her. He places her image on the women he desires. He makes you his anima, not a person but a projection. And as long as you remain ideal, untouched, and distant, he can love you from afar. But the moment you become real, with feelings, needs, depth, you shatter his fantasy. You become human. And in becoming human, you challenge his dream. Now he must either confront his own inner feminine, or destroy the reflection that dared to awaken her. This is why so many strong men crumble in the face of true intimacy. They have spent their lives building thrones atop denial, and now the goddess demands authenticity. They cannot fight her. They can only either kneel in reverence or flee in fear. But here is the sacred paradox. The man who surrenders to this fire is not emasculated. He is initiated. The feminine does not weaken him. She calls forth the king from the boy, the seer from the warrior, the lover from the protector, but only if he chooses to enter. And you must never dim your light to coax him forward. You must not make yourself small so that he feels big. Because if he rises only when you shrink, he is not rising at all. Do you see? His forbidden desire is not you. It is what you awaken in him. And if he does not yet have the strength to meet it, do not become less so that he can feel more. Do not mistake his fear for your unworthiness. Do not translate his silence into rejection. Let him run if he must. Let him deny what he feels. You do not need to chase the man who hides from his own soul. Because a woman who sees clearly does not plead. She does not chase. She stands, sovereign, radiant, and whole, and trusts that what is meant for her will meet her in the light, not hide in the shadows. There comes a moment in every woman's path, a soul-splitting moment, when she realizes that being desired is not the same as being seen, that a man's touch does not always mean connection, that his presence can feel like absence in disguise. And in that moment, something ancient stirs in her, something fierce, something sovereign, because the woman who has done her shadow work, who has danced with her own darkness, can no longer be fooled by empty attention. She no longer confuses intensity with intimacy. She no longer waits for a man to choose her as proof of her worth. She has seen too much, felt too much, grown too much. So when a man draws near and begins to show his forbidden desire, that aching hunger for emotional safety, for the grace of being understood, she does not flinch. But neither does she fall. She watches, quietly, not from judgment, but from discernment. For she knows now, some men want healing but not growth. They want to bathe in the warmth of a conscious woman without doing the cold work of confronting themselves. They want the feeling of transformation, not the fire that forges it. And that is not enough. Because when a woman becomes aware of her own power, the power to illuminate, to stir, to break illusions simply by existing in her truth, she also becomes aware of her responsibility. Not to fix, not to save, but to stand firm in her own soul. So when he comes with eyes full of longing, when he whispers dreams of depth and vulnerability, she listens. But she listens not only with her ears. She listens with her body, with her intuition, with the place inside her that can feel whether his desire is rooted in courage or fear. You see, the awakened feminine is not cold. She is clear, and in that clarity she becomes rare, unreachable to those who have not yet met themselves, irresistible to those who have, because now she sees the dance for what it truly is. Not a chase, not a game, but a mirror. And if the man is brave enough to look, to really look, he will not see her. He will see himself. This is what Jung meant when he said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But transformation is not always beautiful. It is often violent. A death before the rebirth. The shattering of illusion before the rise of truth. And for many men, that moment is too much. Too soon. Too terrifying. So they leave. They return to the safer woman. The one who won't question their masks. The one who celebrates the persona and never seeks the soul. The one who lets them stay half-formed because she's still waiting to be completed herself. But that is not you. You are not a harbor for men who fear their storms. You are not a silence to fill their void. You are the mountain they must climb, the mirror they must face, the truth they must choose. Not once, but every day. And if he cannot climb, if he cannot face, if he cannot choose, then let him go. Not with resentment, not with bitterness, but with grace. For even in his absence, he has served you. He has shown you how deeply you feel, how clearly you see, how powerful your presence has become. That is no small thing, because each time you hold your ground in the face of inconsistency, each time you refuse to chase validation, each time you honor your intuition over your loneliness, you are reclaiming the feminine, not the wounded girl who needs to be chosen, but the sovereign woman who knows she is the chooser. This is the journey, not of seduction, but of initiation. And yes, it can be lonely. Yes, it can ache. But in that ache is your awakening. In that ache you rise. You rise not as a prize, but as a path. You become the threshold through which a man must pass to meet his own divinity. And whether he walks through or turns away, you remain. Unshaken, unmoved, uncompromised. Because you are no longer seeking the man who desires you. You are waiting for the man who is ready. And what does it mean, truly, for a man to be ready? It is not perfection. It is not unshakable confidence. It is not some final destination of masculine mastery. It is presence. Readiness is not about how much he has achieved, but how deeply he is willing to feel. It is the capacity to sit in silence without needing to escape. To look into your eyes and not flinch when he sees himself reflected there. To stay when the fire of intimacy burns away the layers he's used to hide behind. Readiness is when a man no longer runs from his wounds, but names them. When he stops seeking women to heal him and begins healing himself so he can love more truthfully. when his desire for your body is matched by a reverence for your being. But that kind of man is not born through comfort. He is forged through initiation. And most modern men have never been initiated. They have been praised for their minds, rewarded for their accomplishments, applauded for their logic, but no one has taught them to feel. No one has handed them the tools to navigate their own emotional underworld. So instead of walking through their shadow, they outsource it. They use women as balm, as mirror, as mother, not out of cruelty, but out of unconsciousness. And unless they awaken, they repeat the same cycle again and again. Desire, retreat, project, abandon. But the awakened woman no longer spins in that cycle. She has stepped out of the spiral, not in bitterness, but in truth. She knows now. Her love is a gift, not a lure. Her softness is sacred, not something to be exploited. Her presence is medicine, but only for those who are willing to receive it with honor. And she no longer trades her essence for potential. Let that land. You no longer fall in love with who he could be. You wait to see who he chooses to become, in his actions, in his emotional courage, in his spiritual integrity. Not just once in a fleeting moment of connection, but again and again, especially when the path gets hard. Because real intimacy begins after the spark. When the masks fall, when the triggers rise, when the body can no longer protect what the heart has refused to process. This is where the sacred work begins. And here, in this crucible, is where you must remember who you are. Not a rescuer, not a reward, not a reaction, but a revelation. You do not need to chase clarity from a man who cannot offer it. You do not need to prove your worth to one who has yet to recognize his own. You are not here to shrink to meet him where he is. You are here to rise, and let him rise if he dares. And if he cannot, then you bless the lesson and let him go. Because you now understand the cost of staying small. You've tasted the bitterness of waiting for someone to catch up while you dim your brilliance for their comfort. And it is a price you will never pay again. You are done trying to be easy to love. You are done abandoning your truth for temporary affection. You are done confusing longing with alignment. Because the man who is truly for you will not be threatened by your depth. He will be called into it. He will not run from your power. He will meet it with his own. He will not shrink you. He will revere you. And when that man arrives, there will be no begging.
No convincing.
No twisting yourself into softness to keep him from leaving. There will be space. There will be fire. There will be truth. He will not fear your emotional intensity. He will honor it. Because he has met his own. He will not hide behind games because he has outgrown the need to win. He will come not as a boy seeking a mother, but as a man seeking a mirror, partner, a soul whose presence calls him home to himself. And in that union, there will be no chasing, only choosing. The forbidden desire every man hides is not weakness. It is his longing to be met, to surrender, to shed the armor, to return, finally, to a love that asks nothing but truth. And you are no longer the woman who waits for that truth to arrive. You embody it. And so here you stand, not as the girl you once were, waiting with an open heart and trembling hands, hoping to be enough for the man who couldn't meet himself. No, that version of you has fallen away like old skin, not in rage but in reverence. Because now you see what she could not. Your worth was never tied to his readiness. Now you walk not with desperation, but with discernment. You no longer ask, will he choose me? Instead you ask, does he have the courage to meet me where I already am? Because you have done what many fear. You have faced your own shadow. You have knelt before your pain without flinching. You have stared into the void of longing and refused to fill it with half-love. You have burned. And in that burning, you have become a woman no longer ruled by the need to be understood by those who cannot even understand themselves. You no longer bend to avoid loneliness, because you have made peace with solitude. You no longer settle for fragments, because you have remembered your wholeness. You are not hungry for scraps of affection tossed at you from broken men too afraid to love in full. And when he returns, as some men do, eyes heavy with regret, words soaked in almosts and maybes, you will not crumble. You will not ache for what might have been. You will remember who you are. Because now, you walk with the wisdom of the woman who has touched the forbidden desire in men and did not lose herself in the process. You are not the fantasy. You are the threshold, the awakening, the echo of everything he once feared and everything his soul now craves. But still, you do not wait. You are no longer the lighthouse hoping he finds his way. You are the flame that dances, the mountain that rises, the ocean that moves on its own rhythm. You are not the soft landing for men unwilling to fly, because the woman who knows her worth does not audition. She does not chase. She does not convince anyone of her value. She embodies it, with every word she speaks, with every boundary she holds, with every time she chooses peace over potential. You no longer seek love as salvation. You bring love as truth. And when the man comes, if he comes, he will not find the version of you that waited. He will find the version who became, who stepped into her divine clarity, who loved herself fiercely enough to walk away from anything that could not hold her fully. He will not find a woman hoping to be chosen. He will find a woman who chooses, because love, real love, is not about completing one another. It is about standing whole and still choosing to walk side by side. It is not about possession. It is about presence, not about taming, but rising. And you are the rising, the remembering, the reclamation of the feminine that no longer sacrifices herself on the altar of almost. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase. She chooses.